Hello, and welcome to the podcast, It's a Matter of Life and Death, a podcast by Annie Anderson and the Energy Medicine Clinic, one where we look to support, align, guide, and empower conversations that are tricky, passionate, and emotional about life and death. Thanks for joining us. Good afternoon. Hello, and welcome to the studio. I have here with me today Nikole, and we're gonna just dive right into all of these tricky conversations. Thank you so very much for joining me here today.
Annie, I am so honored to be here, and I'm really excited. A little bit nervous, but I'm excited. Let's dive in.
Okay, what are you most excited about, or what are you most nervous about? Let's address that.
I'm a little nervous of what I have to say and people listening.
Okay. You might be more surprised than you realize to find how many people resonate with your same thoughts.
Yeah, and
It's interesting. I had a course this last weekend that I went to, and I shared something fairly vulnerable. And 2 people out of 23 said, "Whoa, you just said exactly what I've been feeling and afraid to say." Mm-hmm. So it really gave them permission to realize they weren't different. They had somebody else who was saying the same things as them, and it shocked them that they weren't the only one.
Mm-hmm. And even thinking on the same page about something.
Yes.
I think I'm a little bit nervous because it's vulnerable. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a little uncomfortable.
Yep. Well, and that's where the growth happens, is when you're a little bit uncomfortable, but you're not paralyzed by fear.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm here, I came, I showed up, and
You'll leave with both eyebrows, I promise.
yes, good, because I work hard on these. No.
But death is not a common conversation. Talking about dying is not generally what people get to do on a Friday evening when they hang out.
Right.
They don't say, "Hey, come on over, let's talk about what it's like to, see a dead body." they just don't generally do that.
Well, and because it's uncomfortable and it's so sad, I feel so many people don't understand about grief and how impactful it is.
Yes.
And it changes your whole life. And to say that as a regular conversation piece,
It is vulnerable.
And that doesn't happen, though.
Not generally.
Talk about death. What do you want to do at your funeral? No one says that.
And why do you think that is?
I think maybe because it's scary to think that we're going to die one day. We're not here forever. And the ego is saying, just ignore that because I'm the most important thing ever. So
look at me.
Yeah.
But do you think it also maybe is uncomfortable because if you realize, actually, whoa, I'm not here forever, and it might be today or tomorrow or 30 years or 50 years from now that my time comes, but if they acknowledge the fact that they actually are going to die, because legit, nobody gets out of this alive, mm-hmm. Do they have to take accountability and responsibility for what they've done in their life so far?
And did it matter?
And have they done what they wanted to do or what they said they were going to do? And then do they have to own the fact that maybe they haven't achieved what they thought they should or they've said they're going to do, and that's a hard pill to swallow?
Mm-hmm. And I think the fear of the unknown, generally
Absolutely.
None of us know when we're going to die.
Yep.
So it's the undetermined amount of time and just...
Well, you know when your birthday is, right? Mm-hmm. You know the date and the month of when you were born. And every year you circle the calendar, you pass your birthday and you have a celebration. And every year you also pass your death date.
Without
knowing when that is.
Mm-hmm. Which is just a little unsettling.
Yep.
And scary. It takes a lot of trust.
Yep. And if you have incomplete conversations that would help heal you or someone else and have some completion that are left like dangling participles, knowing that there's still that mess to take care of, then puts you back into that place of ownership. Okay, this is up for me to deal with and I don't really want to because it could be painful or ugly or sad or, bring up something I don't want to have to deal with. I'd rather just shut the door and not look at the
Exactly.
mess.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
easier to just brush it on the rug and pretend that it's not.
Yeah.
Not even like, oh, cross that bridge when I come to it. Well, because, when I come to it, I'm going to be dead. So
Yeah.
if I didn't talk about it with anybody or have anybody else know, then
Yep.
I will get brushed under the rug.
Yep.
I think that too is a little scary for people if they did my life matter. Like, I'm not famous. I'm not a big deal. And
But do
I
you think
can't
you
even-
have to be famous or a big deal in order for your life to matter?
oh, not at all. Because I'm thinking, my mom passed away in December of 2022 from cancer. And I mean, there were a decent amount of people at her funeral. And, but as far as the rest of the world, was it in the newspapers that she died? No. But did it 100% change the rest of my life and impact me in that loss? And like, I'm still dealing with it every day. But that it's not like huge accolades or worldwide fame to know that her life mattered.
Yeah.
It mattered to me.
Yeah.
It matters. Like, our life matters to the people who are in it.
Yes.
Maybe not to a bunch of strangers. Like, I'm not going to be a TikTok, what's it called? Like, we'll go viral on TikTok or
Right.
whatever. Like, it's not going to be that. But that's okay.
And her life still mattered.
Exactly. Like, it still mattered and and still had impact on me.
And other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, I think about that when people don't realize their death will have such an impact on more people than they realize. If you take someone who dies by suicide, I think sometimes they feel like their life doesn't matter, therefore it won't make a difference if they die.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't realize, depending on where they're at in their life, if they're in school or they're at a job or, wherever they are, there are people that will go, okay, there's a hole now in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody has to deal with that hole. And that can be more impactful than the person who is gone realizes. Yeah, the whole concept and the topic of suicide is in its own sort of kettle of fish.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a big topic all in itself.
And I don't know very much about death by suicide. I think ties in very closely with death. It's sad. And, it's,
Some deaths, though, can be very happy.
yeah.
Like, I've known people that are grateful and looking forward to it, not because they hate their life or they're in miserable amounts of pain, but they've had a full life. They've checked all the things that they thought were important to have on a bucket list. And now they're just tired.
Mm-hmm.
And they need something that's new and fresh to look forward to. And that next chapter appeals to them because of the mystery, because they don't know. It's not, Macaroni Monday.
Well, just like, what's next? I've done this,
Yes.
and I'm ready for my level up.
Yes.
And let's go.
Yeah, what's going to happen? And they don't wish their life away, and they don't, not value what they still have left, but they're not afraid of it. And they're, in some respects, even looking forward to what might be coming next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ex-husband, Bradley, he had two grandparents that I knew and was fairly close with. And I was actually in the hospital room with when his grandma passed away. And I'm just thinking about that as, she was old.
Yeah.
Like 80-something.
Okay.
And it was just very peaceful. And I think of... yeah, and then his grandpa was same thing, old, maybe over 90, but just what's next? Let's go.
Yeah.
And it was time. I think that too, like the timing of things, because when my mom, sorry, I'm having the squirrel moment of
It's okay.
being ready when you're old versus not.
Yes.
And my mom was only 55. She was very young to be not here anymore.
Yeah.
And I think of it like I still need my mom.
Yep.
And I miss her and I wish that she was here. And the release that she had by passing on was like a relief.
Yes.
And it was like, I'm glad that you're not suffering anymore. And I
There's still maybe
miss
30 or
you
40
and-
years that you could have benefited
Totally.
having her around.
yeah, I feel robbed in a lot of ways. Glad that she's free from her pain. And also, like, I got ripped off because I still need a mom.
Yeah.
My kids still need their nana.
Yeah.
And
It's that concept of holding two things at the same time.
Yes.
You're both sad that she's gone and grateful she's not suffering.
right.
Yeah.
And even sad that she, like, for her life, like I'm saying, I'm sad, I need my mom, but she still could have, like, just more life for her.
Yes.
She was only 55. That's still,
Very vibrant.
and, you know, before she was diagnosed with cancer, very much like she was a nurse, she was a nana, she was active in church, and, you know, she was living her best life, and that got taken away too soon, in my opinion. And that part around death is hard
Yeah.
because it's out of our control, and I like controlling things.
In some ways, it's out of our control. And then there's some people that would say now with the advent of like the MAID program, the medical assistance in dying, people have more control
Right.
over when they go, especially if they are in a situation where they have something that they know is going to be terminal.
Yeah, and that you bring up maids, and that was a challenge for me, watching her suffer. And she had her religious beliefs that I didn't agree with anymore, and watching her still suffer and not do the medically assisted death by suicide, that was really hard. But I learned then that, like, it was her choice.
Yeah, her experience.
And it's her body, her choice, her life, her journey, and that was her decision. And I learned to hold space for that,
Yeah.
even though I disagreed with it and it was really hard. So that was good for me, and being able to hold two things at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
I really disagree with this, and why are you still here when it's hurting you so much? And holding space for her, that it's her choice.
Yeah. Yeah, she was in charge.
And then, like, just having not as much understanding around that as I would have liked, and accepting that.
And so has it been difficult in the conversations around her death now more than a year and a half later? Or is it getting easier, or what's changed?
I mean, time. And, like, I still am close. I'm actually closer now with my two aunts, so her sisters. I'm closer with now than I was before she passed away.
Right.
And that's, like, you know, the sting of, why did it take this? Why did I have to lose my mom then and turn to my aunts when I could have had this?
All three.
Yeah, and I could have had this stronger relationship for that much longer.
Yeah.
But we talk about her, and I get to know her better by talking with them, because I don't know how she was growing up. And, you know, even when I was first born, like, I mean, I was a baby. I don't remember that or know the details of it, but understanding her better through their stories. And
And they would have different stories than your mom would have presented.
well, because different perceptions. Like, my mom and her sister Shelley are only 11 months apart, and so they're Irish twins and the best of friends. And yeah, knowing my mom's version of stories is going to be different than Shelley's, and that just adds more to the whole.
More depth.
Yeah, and more variety and more beauty, I think.
That's nice. It's a nice way to look at that situation.
Yeah, I feel like I would give anything to have her back. not suffering and sick, but
Sure.
to have her back in her height of times, or whatever.
At the peak of her life.
Yeah, and have her back. And knowing that I can't have that, I can still see the benefits since.
That you can find in this situation.
Yeah, and having a closer relationship with my aunties and like treasuring that, and even seeing, just how it's like benefited me. I've learned so much from this process. Not that I would wish her to die, because
No, of course
no,
not.
I don't. And I'm glad that I can see the beauty, and love is a beautiful pain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. What advice would you have, or thoughts would you like to share on how do you reconcile the differences because of the religious disparity of what your mom thought was going to happen in her next chapter versus what you think happens in the next chapter? Because if you've got such polar, or maybe they're not so different, I don't know, but what would you say to people when they're in a position of not being on the same page as somebody about what happens next, especially when it's somebody they love? How do you navigate that, do you think?
yeah, it was really hard. Still is. I'm even still trying to figure out what I think or believe.
Right.
I feel like there's no way to know.
Right.
Not a single person here knows what's next. As humans, I love how it says in the Barbie movie. Have you seen Barbie?
I have not seen a Barbie movie.
Well, there's my little plug. Go
Okay.
watch Barbie. Ruth Handler, who is like the creator of Barbie, talks with Barbie as she's gonna send her back to the real world. Spoiler alert. But she says that humans create systems, beliefs about things to make it less uncomfortable, to help us to cope with the pain, the grief. So there's so many different ideas, beliefs, religions, all those things to help us to navigate and help give some kind of peace and hope, because we don't know. I don't know for sure if I'm ever going to see my mom, if I'm ever going to hug her again and hold her hand. But I don't need to know in
Right.
a way. Like,
Yeah.
I just trust that energy can be neither created nor destroyed, and just lean into that a little bit. So to give a little bit of background, my mom was Mormon. I was raised Mormon, and I left that religion and perspective, and I've opened my mind to spirituality and understanding things in a little bit different way. And there was a little bit of conflict with her belief in God and not wanting to do the medically assisted death by suicide, and I was really struggling with that. And now it's a little bit, I just need to
Yeah, center.
refocus my brain. Having different ideas of what the afterlife is shouldn't be so divisive,
Right.
because really at the end of it, nobody knows.
Until they're there.
Exactly. And then I can't come back and tell you like, oh, I was right,
Yeah. Now, not to minimize this, but I speak in analogies and metaphors. Would it be akin to, there's a piece of fruit here, some tropical fruit, and we're not from a tropical country, so there's lots of tropical fruit out there that I've never eaten, and that you've also never eaten.
Right.
And we look at this piece of fruit and we say, well, I think that one's going to be sweet, and I think that one's going to be sour. And we have no idea really. Neither of us have taken a bite. We haven't peeled it. We haven't sniffed it. We haven't anything. We just go either based on experience of it looks similar to another type of fruit, or my intuition is saying this, or I would like to believe that it's sweet because I don't really care for sour fruit. however the case may be, you and I can both have a different opinion about the same thing, and we should be able to tolerate both different opinions because neither one of us knows for certain.
Right. And that's not like a right or wrong. It's what brings us peace. And
What you prefer to believe in.
yeah. And I feel like since leaving organized religion and stepping more into the spiritual world, it's not about me being right or I kind of lost my thought.
That's okay. So just I think that speaks to the point of, if you're religious, you have a certain set of rules or expectations or beliefs that are defined by that religion. And if you're spiritual, maybe you have different ones.
Right. And it's like there's no way to know. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So about the fruit, I'm not going to tear down what you think the fruit will be, even though I disagree. Neither of us know. So I'm not going to let that differing of opinions divide us.
Right.
And make it be like a negative
experience or interaction.
Right.
But I think some of that speaks to your emotional intelligence in the fact that you would rather be happy than right. Even if you can't prove that you're right. There are lots of people out there that have opinions that absolutely need their opinion to be the right one so that they can be happy, even if it's at the expense of somebody else's opinion or their feelings.
Right.
Right. So I agree with you. And I don't think everybody out there is necessarily that evolved emotionally that they can see that distinction. So kudos to you, because I totally think that being able to do that is a sign of, emotional growth and maturity and the work that you've done, as you've gone through life to be healthy. And there's a lot of people out there that haven't or don't understand how much they would benefit from that self-work.
Yeah.
But to be able to hold two different opinions in the same room, especially when you're talking about delicate or touchy subjects, most people say don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics in mixed company because it's never going to end well.
Or on a first date.
Right? But I think what that speaks to is an inability to have difficult communications and conversations navigated because you don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to disagree and still get along.
Well, because my ego wants to be the right one.
Correct.
And like if my ego is the main voice and I'm
This one you're hearing most often.
I'm going to play into that and baby it.
Yeah.
Well, then you're going to do things like I have to be right, and that's divisive and
So what I hear you
unifying.
saying is that if you have someone who has a different opinion about what the next chapter is than somebody else, and one of them, presumably if you're talking about death and you're talking about somebody who's close to you that could be passing, that if you have those differences, it's okay to be different, because what is the point of being right at the expense, right? And I use the word right with quotation marks hanging around it, at the expense of their peace or their happiness or their, hope for whatever might be that brings them that comfort.
And thinking about the last weeks of my mom's life, I was really having a hard time with her and the difference of opinions that we had. And there wasn't a conversation around it. I didn't feel like I was reassured or could even say, like, can you just explain why you think this? I'm not saying you have to like justify it. Just help me to understand why. And I didn't really get that. And then she passed away. But even looking back, I can see that was time and energy that I put into feeling so angry and frustrated, and even a part wishing that she would just like, I just want to talk about it so that I can tell you what I think and show you that I'm the right one. And like my ego was being really loud. And now I look back and wish I hadn't spent all of that energy and time even caring, because well, now it doesn't matter because she's gone and she is wherever she is, and I'm here. And like, it wasn't beneficial
Right.
for me.
There was no return on that.
No, and there was no resolution to it either because well, there is, I guess, because she did what she wanted because it's her body, her choice.
Right.
And I was the one to sort through my feelings about it. I think just to say and like find acceptance of the difference, and that doesn't have to be the end all be all, and then like focus so much on the different idea.
Right.
Even just having a more open perspective of, oh, that would be cool, or just having an open mind about maybe that is, no one knows. But even just then, instead of focusing on what we don't know, just focus on what's right here, right now.
Between us.
Yeah. And like being grateful for each other and our relationship. And yeah, how can I support you? Yeah. And how can I support you? How can I make you feel my love?
So that you feel loved.
Yeah. And so that the last moments of your life are full, and like I can help contribute to the peace instead of the anger or tension or stress or difference and negativity.
Well, that raises a really good question in my mind, because having been trained as a death doula, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize a death doula can do is help navigate those difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily mediate,
right?
Because that kind of speaks to conflict that needs resolution, as opposed to greasing the wheels so that communication can happen, and so people can be heard and understood. Mm-hmm. Knowing now, I realize you can't go back in time, but would a third party like a death doula to help navigate those conversations have been helpful, or would it have been awkward or something else?
I could see the value in it. I think even just for myself, it wasn't like I wasn't the one who passed away, but I think, just more support during those conversations. And then,
maybe even offering a different perspective that neither of you had considered.
Right. And yeah, I like what you say, greasing the wheel, giving support and love around something that is very
emotionally charged.
Yeah, and uncomfortable. And, in the case with my mom, it's inevitable for everyone, but for her, it was like we knew that it was going to be quick.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because of the differing of opinions with religion, that we didn't have those conversations. And I wasn't included in a lot of the discussions, or in that part really at all.
But religion aside, do you suppose that the mom in her could have been uncomfortable having some of those conversations because of whatever residual feeling she had about her momness, about how she did as a mom, and knowing that she's running out of time?
Right. And how do you sum up something like, how do you say that in a lifetime and say all of the things?
Yes.
Like,
it's a great question.
How I don't know. And I don't know, is that a realistic expectation to put on a mother, that, okay, when you die,
well, I think it's
tell me how much you love me.
It's certainly a lot easier to have that conversation far in advance of that even needing to be anywhere near the final days or weeks of when you know that you've got this impending situation.
Right. And we're talking about somebody who had cancer and was going to be passing on fairly quickly. We knew that. There are people who pass away in sudden car accidents, and there's no preparation or anything at all.
There's no opportunity to pre-plan.
Exactly. There's no preparation. There's no buffer to the thing. It's just like you are smacked right into it and trying to figure it out, and then left with so many unanswered questions. And Yeah, I think,
Well, that is one of the premises behind why I'm doing this podcast, is to help stimulate those conversations before you don't have time.
right.
How do we normalize this so that it can be something that's discussed in mixed company, in different ages, different socioeconomic situations? Because let's face it, whether you're rich, you're poor, you're man, you're woman, you're child, you're adult, all of those different cross sections of people have the potential to die at any given stage in their life.
Yeah. It's the one thing that all of us have in common,
Yes.
that we are all going to die. And none of us know when, generally, but having even just a better understanding of, hey, this is kind of what I want.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
can you do this or that? I went to a funeral of a family friend. So it was my aunt that I'm not related to, like aunt through marriage,
Right.
her mom.
Right.
And so like my cousin's grandma. And I had known Pat my whole life. I don't remember meeting her because
She's always
she
been
was
there.
just like a part of my family in a way. And she passed away a few years ago. We actually had cancer at the same time. But when I went to her memorial service, they talked about her and her story of her life, and I learned things about her that I didn't know. And they had a time at the end of the service where anybody could get up and share their memories of her, share a funny story or anything what they were feeling. And that was the first time that I had been to a funeral like that, and I loved it. I was like, wow. And I got up and shared things, realizing that her and I had a lot in common that I didn't know about until
Then.
the service. And yeah, being able to share that. And I think that just adds to the richness and the beauty of the service. And
I've been to those types of services, and it allows community healing
yes,
through that sharing.
yeah, even for me,
Yes.
being there and being like the whole service, I was like, whoa, like she had 4 kids. She was divorced. She went back to school. Like just thing after thing.
many
It
touch
was like
points.
community or a communal. I did that too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I was just surprised because I didn't know these things about her. Like she was a grandma. So I didn't,
She didn't exist as a young woman or somebody.
not to me.
No.
Because like she was my cousin's grandma. And yeah, just getting to know her better and then realizing how much we had in common. And while I was sitting there, I had feelings of gratitude for her and her strength. And that showed me because she had gone through a lot of the similar things that I had gone through. And that like bolstered me and strengthened me. And then I was able to get up and share that with, I mean, a whole bunch of strangers, but even still just expressing it for me was healing. And
And who knows how that healing affected somebody
exactly
else.
the
that
ripple
didn't
effect.
share.
And
Yes.
yeah, and you know, you don't have to get up and share, but that still like that you resonated with
Yes.
that and it impacted. And yeah, so when I think about my funeral, I'm like, I want it to be fun. I'm
celebration.
fun. Yeah, like tell about the cool things I did in my life. You know, that hasn't happened yet, but like but you know, she has 4 kids and blah blah blah. Like, but I want it to be fun. I want even like karaoke at my funeral or something. Like
Yes.
that would be so fun because I love karaoke. I love to sing and just like do that to remember me and
To
then
celebrate
share.
you.
And I want people to share about, oh, do you remember that time she did this? And you know, like
And laugh.
and have it be like a celebration. Yes, it's sad and like remember,
Cherish all the things you did have, not what you lost.
yeah, the like focus on the amazing bright shining light of a person that I am.
Well, that is true.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Absolutely true. Yep.
But I just like that, like, Pat's funeral was non-denominational, and it was my favorite. Like, it was just like,
A core memory for you. Sounds like.
yeah. And I resonated with that idea, and I'm wanting that for me. Like, I want it to be fun.
Yeah.
Get together and hug. Yes, cry. I like to cry, but also celebrate the fun things.
Share the memories. Share those stories like your aunt is sharing now about your mom.
Yeah, and have people who, like, get to know me better.
Even more. Have you heard of have they heard of the concept of a living funeral?
Yes, and I'm like, okay, because even with the passing of my mom, well, yeah, I saw my friend Ian from high school, who I hadn't seen since we graduated pretty much, and him and I were able to reconnect, and it was just like this beautiful friendship that I had lost, but then gained back because he came to my mom's funeral. And well, why couldn't I just hang out with him before? Like,
And why couldn't the funeral have happened before your mom died?
right. And so then she could see all
Yes.
those people who came to celebrate her,
Yes.
to remember and mourn and cry
And
together.
share,
And
yes. And complete in some manner.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
that's go ahead.
I think with cancer and with my mom's situation, that kind of living funeral, I mean, would be different than, like, let's say if I did a living funeral right now, well, I might not die for 50 years.
Right.
But my mom was going to pass away sometime. So that,
Yes. Yeah, if you're in a position where you have, a fairly strong inkling or, knowing that we've done all that we can do and now it's just a matter of letting nature take its course.
right.
Could we not organize a living funeral now so that that celebration can
happens
be had
with the
that
person, and creating even more beautiful memories for them,
Everybody.
and richness and love for the rest, that good memories for the rest of however long they have left.
And
I
all
love
of those
that
other
idea.
people. Mm-hmm. Like,
Right.
how cool would it have been to you sit down with Pat
Yeah.
and say, wow, I had no idea. Mm-hmm. And have
Yeah.
that opportunity to connect.
100%. I think that would be magical in, like, just strengthening relationships
Yeah.
in advance.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Now you said something very quickly in passing there, and for people that don't know you, I just want to circle back to it because I think you offer a different perspective than lots of people because you have survived cancer.
Yes. Yeah, I had stage 4 Hodgkin lymphoma in 2017. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office when they were telling kind of what the treatment plan was, and that I needed to do 6 months of chemo. And I said, well, what if I don't? Like, just, I want to
Yeah, what if?
understand. I want to understand all these options. I'm not just going to pump my body full of literal poison if I don't want to. And, yeah, the doctor said, Hodgkin lymphoma is the highest treatable. I think there's like 97% of cases are like
Surviving.
cured or, into remission. And, like, it's very, very treatable. So let's do this. She said, if you don't do the treatment, then it will take over and it will move to it will metastasize and move to other parts of your body, and you will die. And she was
So
like,
on one hand, it's a really good one to have because you can fix it. But on the other hand, if you don't
Right.
do anything, it's going to get you.
yes, I mean, it's still
Yeah.
cancer.
It's like A or B. Mm-hmm. None of this shades of gray.
Totally. And she said, I don't know, like, how long. I couldn't tell you how long or how fast, but if you don't do the treatment, eventually you will die. Which, yeah, I guess I have had like a, do I want to do this? Faced with death. And, I was mom. I had my youngest, my third was only 6 months old. And yeah, I obviously chose to do the cancer.
Yeah,
I chose to do the
treatment.
treatment. And yeah, I feel like looking back on it now, like that changed my life
Pivotal.
for a lot of things. Like it directed my life in a completely different way, and I've learned so much about myself since, and have, I mean, changed a lot about who I, or the outside looking in part of my life since that time. And
What's one thing that you think, or maybe there's several things that you think only would have changed with that experience, with that diagnosis, with that decision that you're faced with? What do I do here? X or Y, or is it Q or is it R? Like, all the different things that I've never had to feel because I've never been sitting across from a doctor saying, you have cancer. What do you suppose might be one big decision that you chose because of that diagnosis or that conversation? Or is that too big of a question to spring on you?
I'm maybe not understanding like specifically what you mean.
Okay, so for example, if the doctor said, Nikole, this is the way it is, did it spur you to say, I'm going to go bucket list things? I'm gonna go write that book that I've always wanted to write, or I'm gonna go to Costa Rica, or I'm gonna shave one side of my head bald, and you know what I mean? Like,
I love how you're like picking out things. Yeah.
because I don't know, did that conversation spur you to want to grab life by the throat even more, or did it spiral you for a while until you came back out the other side, like ready to take life on? Or, you know what I mean? Because it's like you had a bite of that fruit,
Right.
or at least you held the fruit in your hand.
Or maybe in the same room as the fruit.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that it was necessarily that specific conversation, but just that period of my life,
That
and
journey.
having cancer,
That chapter.
and then being able to, like, I mean, I've been cancer free for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think so.
What year is it?
2024.
Yeah, 6.5 years. And yeah, I feel like I've done big, hard changes in my life that I don't know that I would have if I hadn't
Right.
had cancer and gone through that part of my journey.
And as the time goes on and you get farther away from that period when that happened, does the impact of it lessen?
No.
That was a very quick, firm no.
Well, I just know that like so much came up during that time that I'm still figuring out
Right.
and navigating. But
I just know that like when you twist your ankle and you can't get around as easily anymore, all of a sudden, oh, I wish I could go to the gym. Like I wish my ankle felt good because it's affected my life and it's hampered things. And then when your ankle heals, 6 months later, you've forgotten that you hurt your ankle and you're actually not going to the gym because the perspective is gone, right?
Right, and
the
the motivation.
stark contrast.
It's hard to get back into that groove.
So I just wonder if the farther away you get from that moment in that doctor's office, has the appreciation for the depth and gravity of that fork in the road, does it lessen? Do you take it for granted?
I might take it for granted just maybe because I don't think about it. I forget. But in conversations like this, like I remember how it felt. And I feel like it was empowering for me. I can look back and say like that was the time when I changed direction. Like that impacted the decisions that I made after that, which shifted my entire life
Trajectory.
course.
Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, it was empowering because I beat cancer before I was 30. And then it was like, for what? Like, why? What was, I did that. And that's a
That's a massive accomplishment.
Huge accomplishment that I never even thought I was going to have to do. But I did it. And
now
that reminded me of my strength. And even maybe not consciously at the beginning, but that set me on a different path to be more authentic. And yeah, I did beat cancer before I was 30.
Do you think it's made you more willing to be vulnerable about things because you appreciate life in a different way, or because you see the value of not letting fears control you because you've stared death in the face and you stuck your tongue out and you gave it the middle finger and, you did all those things.
Yeah.
And now I just wonder, like, I've lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Squirrel.
I feel like it was part of it. I couldn't say that was the thing. That was the moment that I knew my whole life was going to be different. No, because it wasn't like the billboard sign with all the flashy lights being, this way, this is your life now. Yeah. Choose, this is what happened. But it definitely impacted me and empowered me. And then through that, like, I've changed and like evolved and grown. I'm definitely not even the same person who was diagnosed.
Right.
Like, I'm so different than then. So it was like, yes, even hearing you say, like, you stared death in the face, I'm like, did I though? I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I did. I beat cancer before I was 30, and like, coming back from that, I'm different. I'm new, and I do appreciate, whatever limited time that I have. I want it to be like I lived my life for me. And letting go.
By your rules.
Yeah, and letting go of living for other people.
Frank Sinatra. I did it my way.
And
how old were your kids at the time? Your youngest was 6 months.
Yeah.
Your fourth hadn't come along yet.
I've had
old
one
were your
since.
other two?
I'm not good at math. 7.
Okay.
And 5.
Okay.
Well, wait, no, not even, because if my youngest was 6 months, my next one, Phoenix, is only 16 months older than Soren. So
Okay.
she was like
Just about 2.
2 and 4. So 4, 2, and 6 months old
Right.
when I was diagnosed.
I'm guessing they don't remember that time.
No, I actually was talking with my oldest, Champ, and asked him, like, do you remember when I had cancer? And he was like, no, not really. Because, I mean, he was 4. He might remember, like, core things. He did say, we went to Grandma's a lot, huh? And I was like, yeah, we did go to Grandma's. And Nana came over and Grandma came over to our house. Like, we had a lot of help and family support during that time. But that wasn't
their focus.
Well, I mean, he's 4.
They're 4. Yeah,
And
it
2.
makes sense.
Phoenix, for sure. And,
When it's snack time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even just having this conversation is making me think about it in a way I haven't before, of like, when I was told that I had cancer, how did it change your life?
How did it shift you as a parent? Because I've heard of people that say when they've gotten news like that, they plan for just in case, and they handwrite all sorts of letters to their kids at what would be, special moments like graduation and wedding and the birth of your first child and those sorts of things. Yeah. Did that occur to you to do, or was that?
No, not really. I think maybe because, it was Hodgkin lymphoma, 97% chance. Like, I didn't ever really feel or think that I was going to die.
Right.
Like, any more than anybody else.
I've got a cold.
Like, totally. Well, I did get sick and I was in the hospital, but I never felt like
you were like,
my life is threatened and I'm going to die, so I need to
the Reaper
like,
has his hand at your throat and you're clawing at his eyes.
I never felt that. It was like the initial moment when the doctor said, here we go. Let's is the treatment plan. And I asked, what if I don't? And she said, if you don't, you'll die. That was kind of it for me, thinking I'm going to die. So I have to, like, I didn't have any of that, like, planned out. And
what about during your treatment process? So when you weren't feeling well because of the chemo and things like that, did it come back and have a conversation with yourself inside your head of like, oh my God, like my friend Mary is getting her nails done tonight and I'm sitting here getting chemo?
I never, like, thought of it in that way.
Okay.
I was just like a dig deep, power through, let's get this, just do the things. And I just trusted the doctors and honestly didn't really give it another thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like growing up Mormon, I was told what was going to happen when I died. And I, like, had great grandmas and grandpas die. And, you know, I had been to funerals over the growing up. And I was maybe, like, scared of death and scared of it and just having that fear. But I would say in the last 10 years, since cancer, since losing my mom, I feel like I'm not scared of death or, like, whatever is next. Like, I'm not scared of that. I have a fear of, like, the actual dying part. Because I watched my mom and it was terrible. She was suffering and people die in car accidents. That's gotta hurt. And I don't want to do that. And just the unknown.
Yeah.
How am I going to die? Drowning, or burned by fire. Like, all of those terrible, terrible things.
The how part.
That part is what I have the fear on.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I don't know, trusting that, like, I can't live my life in fear and be like, I can't wrap myself in bubble wrap. I need to live my life, and whatever happens after is
what it is.
Yeah.
Now, you hadn't left the church at that point, had you?
When I had cancer?
Correct.
Right.
So
I hadn't.
were you still very firmly ensconced in the beliefs that you had lived all those years?
Yes. And, like, I had a blog that I wrote during my time with cancer and shared because we had people who were constant, like, asking updates and everything. And so I just did a blog and
published, or like an email blog, or how did you
I had a website.
Okay.
NikoleHale.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was a few years, like, I was like, I'm not going to keep paying for this. Like, kind of, it fizzled out, but I printed off the blog posts and made a book. So I have, like,
Have you published it?
Well, I just made it on Shutterfly. Like, I have it.
Oh, okay.
Only, like, one copy.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say probably cancer was the beginning of my faith transition and reading over the blog and seeing how much stock, or I call it power, how much power I was giving into somebody else, when really it was me. I was the one who showed up, who sat there with the chemo, who ached and pained and, like, barfed and did all of those hard things. Like, that wasn't somebody else.
Yeah.
That was me. And I had the strength, dig down deep, find it in there in my bottom toe of, like, that because of me.
Now, did you feel that at the time?
No.
Okay.
I was
so looking back,
attributing it all to God.
Okay.
And that mentality.
And so even though you have since left that group, that faith, was it helpful having it at the time? Even if you don't agree with it now.
That's hard because I think, like, at the time, like, I was like, our hashtag, hail yeah, we got this. Like, and I just was positive and like, we got this. It's all going to work out. It's hard, but here we go. We're in this. And I think because of my, I'm going to call it training.
Sure.
Or indoctrination, or the attributing
teachings, or...
that totally, that was attributing it to,
Something else.
yeah, to God. And since then I've like shifted and changed and realized that it was actually me the whole time. Like I was the one doing the hard things, and it wasn't somebody else out there. Like, where did I get that strength? I think that it was from me.
Right.
Whether that was like future me giving the strength, past me, like all of it was me. And that maybe sounds arrogant, but I think,
Is there room for both? Is there room for both thoughts, whether you're Mormon or Catholic or Buddhist or Muslim, whatever your faith is there room for both philosophies of, I am doing the things because I am physically looking down at my own legs sitting in this chair. This is me doing the things. And I'm doing it simultaneously with the assistance or support of my faith, whatever that might be.
yeah.
Is there room for both?
Yeah, I think so. Because I have, what do you want to call it? Like resistance now to God, because I gave a lot of my own power away to that idea. But then, doing Reiki and having your Reiki master, or not Reiki master, like Reiki guides.
Yes.
Or, and saying that there's no ancestors that come before. Well, they don't help me. That is, I think, where arrogance, and I'm not saying that. I don't know that, is there a way to know? Not
Right.
really. Kind of the same, like what happens after death. I don't know. Well, was that God? Was that me? Was that my Reiki ancestors? Was that my great grandma who passed away when I was 10? Like, there's no way to know. And while I was going through it with cancer, in that mentality, I thought it was God. Now I think that it was me.
Right.
And understanding my own strength and showing up for me.
So with that in mind, I guess my question is whether or not somebody who is either not, I don't want to say weak or shaky because that kind of has a different connotation, but somebody who doesn't come from a strong faith-based perspective, is that a valuable tool to have in those situations?
Like, do you mean, is it valuable to have God?
Or a relationship with something greater than yourself? Whether you call it God, source, universe, Allah, whatever your word is for that thing that's bigger than you, that you don't understand, that you hope is on your side and is there to support you and is based in love. How important is it to have that connection with something greater than yourself to lean on in those moments? Or is it just enough to have yourself?
I think it's valuable to have both.
Yeah.
And I think, like, self-love and loving yourself matters too. Like,
Yes,
I would agree. You have to see and trust yourself to do the things without giving the power away to something else.
Right.
And also, also having the outer
Support.
something bigger.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Do you think it's more important to have that or more important to have physical family and friends?
I would say physical family and friends.
Why? Because
Like
they're more
during-
tangible?
Yeah, and I think for how much cancer changed my life, I couldn't have done it without my mom, my mother-in-law, my, at the time, husband, and being Mormon.
From a practical sense.
Totally. And being Mormon, everyone, we're praying for you. That's a very common thoughts and prayers. And for a time after leaving the church, like, that made me angry because I was like, that does nothing. But it's still like love. You're still
Yes.
putting out that loving energy. And as I learn more about Reiki and that kind of spirituality, quantum physics, those kind of things, and energy, why would I not want
that.
someone to be sharing love with me?
Yeah. sending those positive intentions, whether you call it prayers and thoughts, or you call it love, or you call it,
Right.
whatever the word is, the intention
Yes.
is support and love. And who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. And, yeah, like and what does it matter if that person's, God is doing, like, that one comes from God and this one's from the universe and this one's from the sun. Like, who am I to
Reject any of that support.
exactly, or even decide, well, I don't like those ones. Like, I don't want people-
$50 bills. I only want $100 bills.
right? I don't want those thoughts and prayers that do nothing. Like, for sure, during that time, it encouraged me. People were reaching out and caring and sending love. We had many people give us money and help and
Food. Yep.
yeah, our ward and Brooks brought meals for us, and even like my mom and Jane, my mother-in-law at the time, like came and were with my kids. And now looking back, it's like, well, my perspective has changed on my beliefs in God, but does that mean that I didn't accept their action and showing of love because they believe in God? Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Like, why does even the intention about it matter when the offering is love and support? Like, why does it matter where it came from?
Yeah.
As
It's for your highest and best good.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and cherry pick the ones that I agree with or
Yeah.
not. Like,
Yeah.
it's love and support. And, yeah, I think I know that it was at the end of the day, it was me going and doing the things and showing up and getting the medicine. It was my body and that stuff. And I was also strengthened by all the love. And so who was I? Well, it wasn't God, it was me. Well,
Who knows?
who knows? I can't sit there and decide where that came from and then, oh, well, I don't actually believe in that, so cancel that one out.
Yeah. Take it back.
Yeah, no thanks.
I'll claim this. Yeah. Yeah. And because we don't know. And for that, I'm actually super grateful to have people like you willing to share your thoughts, because it gives a different perspective.
Yeah, and like you don't agree with something. That's okay. Like, I wasn't saying it with a pre-approved checklist of the things that I'm allowed to think and say.
Yes.
It's like, no, and that's where I have felt a lot of healing in being authentic to who I am and my intention of showing up as me, and knowing that that's better than me showing up as
Who you're not.
who you think I am,
Yeah.
or who I think you want me to be.
There's an expression I heard years ago, and I'd love to have my name attached to it because I just think it's awesome. I'd rather have you not love me for who I am than love me for who I'm not. I don't know where that came from, but I read that once years ago and I went, oh, I feel that to my core. To my core.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability and your authenticity. To me, it's very apparent. I think it's great. And I also learned, and I see it reflected back in you, is that I am the most powerful when I'm vulnerable, because it gives permission to other people to be who they truly
Right.
are.
And like, I'll be vulnerable, and that means you can be vulnerable too.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the risk reward, like if it's scary.
Yes.
And knowing that I lived a lot of my life for other people, or what I was taught to do and not what I actually felt. And since stepping more into myself and my power and being authentic, as hard as the transition was, like every day I would rather be who I am and live for me rather than
For somebody else.
for somebody else,
And what they
for
think.
what your idea of who I was or who I thought I needed to be, or like, because that's like there's nothing tangible there. That's all perception.
Yeah.
It's not even like a real thing to hold on to. And
that's powerful. Those are good words to live by. Something to take home and think about and talk to your family and your friends about. Am I being authentic? Am I stepping up or stepping in, showing up, doing the things that are truly important to me, so that at the end of the day, when the lights go out, I've lived a good life and it's been real. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it. I think maybe you'll come back and we'll have some more conversations.
Very much so. I'd be honored.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it. And let's keep having those tricky conversations.